ahead and let's go ahead and get started. So if you're not speaking, go ahead and go off camera and mute, and Don will lead us off. Whenever you're ready, Don.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to our legislative forum. My name is Donald M. Bell. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am 74 years old. And the reason why that is significant is that I am welcoming you this morning as a founding commissioner and chairperson of the Illinois Commission on LGBTQ Aging. And why that's important in the legislative space is that this commission is the first commission of its kind legislatively established in the United States. And it speaks to the long legacy, not only of the LGBT community, but of its advocacy and welcome in the state of Illinois by the state legislature, where Illinois became the first state to decriminalize homosexuality in 1962. And it continues today as one of the few states, the minority of states in the Union, where LGBTQ citizens enjoy full citizenship rights. It's one of the few spaces, the few state houses where LGBT lives are not considered to be under attack, as represented by over 400 initiatives that have been introduced in state houses across the country. What's important about our relationship here in Illinois is that we foster democracy. And remember, Benjamin Franklin was quoted when asked what form of government had been established for the United States, that we had a democracy if we could keep it. Well, here in the state of Illinois, we are dedicated to keeping it by forging the active relationship between the electeds and the electorate. And those of us who are part of the electorate endorse and continue to strive for an electorate that is well educated, that knows its history and its civics, and is actively involved in civic engagement. So welcome to our legislators, our electeds, and welcome to you, the people of the state of Illinois. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kim Hunt, Executive Director of Pride Action Tank and Vice President and of Special Projects and Innovation at AIDS Foundation Chicago. Now we're going to get started with a little storytelling. We're going to have Dr. Nick Weststrait talk a bit about the importance of storytelling in his work. Nick is an assistant professor in the Department of Educational Psychology and member of the Center for Research on Health and Aging at the University of Illinois, Chicago. He is also a member of Pride Action Tank's Out Aging Committee and a co-facilitator of the Storytelling for Change workshop series, which he will tell you more about now.
Thank you very much, Kim, for your introduction. A pleasure to see you as always. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I'm a story scientist with a simple message. Storytelling is good for your health. I'm talking about what happens when we write and tell our life stories. I belong to a group of researchers. We call ourselves narrative psychologists, and we study the impact of storytelling on health and well-being. After many years of research, we know by now that people benefit psychologically, socially, and physically from sharing their life story with others. That's right. Not only can storytelling boost your psychological and social well-being, it can even get under your skin. Studies have found that storytelling is associated with enhanced immune functioning, reduced inflammation, and biomarkers for optimal aging and longevity. Storytelling is also good for community health. And over the past few years, harnessing the power of storytelling among LGBTQ plus people has been the focus of my research, activism, and community engagement. As many of you know, there has always been a rich storytelling tradition in LGBTQ plus communities. This has been necessary for survival in a world that has silenced, erased, and distorted LGBTQ plus stories and experiences within public spaces and discourses. Knowing this, at Pride Action Tank, we infuse storytelling into advocacy work. Recognizing the need for amplifying the voices of aging LGBTQ plus people, we've trained several cohorts of older adults to tell their narrative truth. We've done this through our Outreach program, which seeks to create visibility for LGBTQ plus elders and to educate about their unique needs. Within the Outreach program, I co-facilitate with an award-winning storyteller a 6-part workshop series called Storytelling for Change. In this workshop, our participants sharpen their storytelling skills and learn to narrate a key scene from their life story that brings awareness to an important issue related to LGBTQ plus aging. Then, our older adults take these stories on the road to advocate for structural changes that will improve the lives of LGBTQ plus older adults everywhere. Our focus on storytelling for change embraces the principle that behind every data point is a story. We know that when information is presented in a story, it's several times more memorable than when it's presented as fact alone. Stories connect us to our emotions, encouraging both empathy and understanding as the listener gets transported into the story world of the teller. It even turns out that our brains are wired to respond to inspiring stories. Research has found that certain stories can trigger the release of neurotransmitters associated with pro-social and moral behaviors, increasing the likelihood of people doing good. By now, our storytellers have shared their narratives in a range of settings, including legislative forums like this one, college classrooms, and in various community spaces. We have a literal living library of older LGBTQ plus adults who are ready and waiting to share their stories to make positive change. And we've learned that beyond the health and well-being benefits that I described earlier, storytelling has meant so much to our workshop participants. In fact, we've been conducting research around our participants' experiences in the Storytelling for Change workshop and its partner series, Advocating for Change. We've learned that storytelling for change is empowering and activating. Through this experience, our elders have found fire within themselves to fight ageism and to advocate for their needs as aging LGBTQ plus people. For some of our participants, storytelling for change led to deeper self-understandings and opened new life possibilities in terms of future activities, commitments, and projects. When asked about what it meant for them socially, our elders basked in the joy of being together and felt sorrow in realizing they had been kept apart for so long. This sense of community was, as one participant described it, a lifeline in the dark days of the pandemic. Finally, through storytelling, our elders felt seen and heard. We learned that storytelling for change is a potent antidote to invisibility. And now it's time for some storytelling in action. It's my extraordinary privilege to introduce you to our storyteller for this morning, Lamar Jackson. Lamar, who uses he, him pronouns, is a retired social worker with a passion for theater and the arts. He's a producer and director of various small theater groups working with the LGBTQ plus and 12-step communities. In addition, Lamar enjoys dream interpretation and event and party planning. Please join me in welcoming our incredible storyteller, Lamar Jackson.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Nick. Grateful to be able to tell my story, to be here with all you wonderful people. When I think about my journey through the wilderness of unmanageability into the rooms of recovery, I realized for me, I'm at war with a terrorist, the ultimate enemy, addiction. And every time I go to a 12-step meeting, help another recovering individual, do service work, it's like a carefully scrutinized tactical maneuver, which infiltrates the very core of my being to defeat the enemy. But it wasn't always like that. Flashback to the mid-90s, I'm in the throes of active addiction and embroiled in office drama. There was a coffee station in the back of the office, and there was a small box filled with change, quarters, nickels, dimes, sometimes dollars. The idea was grab a cup of coffee, throw in 50 cents. It was the honor system. Now, I never really took any money out of that box, but I never really put the right amount in the box. Box was always full. I throw in a nickel, a dime, a couple of pennies, which meant that whenever they did the tally, the money was always short, and they just couldn't figure out who was the coffee bandit. One Saturday afternoon, I arrived at work rather early as I'd been up most of the previous night, getting high, smoking crack, and I desperately needed a cup of coffee. Much to my surprise, there was no money in the box. But I figured people would be eventually putting money in the box, which would help camouflage the nickel and 3 pennies I just dropped in the box. I grabbed a cup of Joe, headed to the break room to get my bearings and to relax before the start of my shift. Not long after I sat down, a middle-aged female supervisor tore into the break room like a tornado on the path of destruction and stood next to my table. She asked, "Did you get a cup of coffee?" Now, at this point, I'm keenly aware that something has gone awry. I'm shocked and momentarily speechless. She asked again. I answer in the affirmative, and she bellows in a loud roar. "We're having a party today, Lamar. The coffee is free. Here's your 8 cents." And she slams the coins on the table in front of me. And such few people as there were in the break room tried not to stare at me out of respect. They realized, as did I, that they had found the coffee bandit. Of course, I was humiliated. I was mortified. But it didn't stop me. And in the days and weeks and months to follow, I continued to get high, and it got worse. So much so that eventually the administrator calls me into the office and says, "We can't depend on you. You're not a team player. Consider yourself suspended pending dismissal." I was terrified at the thought of losing my job because I needed my job to get high. So I confessed. I had a drug problem because I had heard that by law, if you told your employer you had a drug problem, they couldn't fire you. The administrator very calmly advised that they would send me to treatment, to rehab, but there was no guarantee I'd ever get my job back. Couldn't lose my job. As I said, I needed my job to get high. And besides, I owed hundreds of dollars to my dealer. Right then, it occurred to me that being low-key, reserved, was not going to win friends and influence people. I had to step out of my comfort zone. I had to become the type of person who was willing to do whatever it took to get my job back. I went to treatment. I was always the first to volunteer. I took risks. I asked questions to show interest, and I was always that one person that tried to put a positive spin on whatever material was presented. Yes, I razzle-dazzled those kids, and I took them by storm, and in 3 days, they voted me vice mayor of the community. 3 days after that, the current mayor was discharged, and they voted me mayor of the community. The office I held for the next 15 days, which was actually a record in rehab. That just doesn't happen. Now, at this point, I kind of have a low opinion of rehab. It was a farce. I gave a performance, and they fell hook, line, and sinker. And I thought, how ridiculous, how absurd is this? But I remember my assignment to do whatever it took to get my job back. So I continued to walk and trudge the road of uncertainty. The counselors at rehab advised that I should go to a recovery house when I leave treatment in an effort to build a strong, solid recovery foundation. And probably would look good on my recovery resume. And who knows? I might even get my job back. I took the suggestion. I went to a recovery house. I stayed sober. And actually, I began to utilize the information I learned in treatment. I found a sponsor. I found a home group. I started working the 12 steps. And a month later, they held that hearing. I got my job back. My dealer came to my job every payday as I paid him off in installments and never looked back. Suddenly helping others and being of service was more important to me than getting high. 1 year later, excuse me, I was appointed house manager of at that recovery house. And I immediately began to be an advocate for the other gay residents living in the other houses that were actually part of the recovery community called Bill's Family. I helped start the very first LGBTQ meeting, 12-step meeting, at a traditional straight 12-step club in Humboldt Park, Division and Damon. I started going to meetings all over the city. I went to a meeting every day for the first 3 years, and I started sponsoring the LGBTQ community. A few years after that, I went back to school and became an alcohol and drug counselor. And I'm happy to report today that I'm 23 years uninterrupted sobriety. So today I claim victory over the terrorists, but the war is never over. The war is never over. We have a daily reprieve. It's one day at a time, but the good news, we do recover. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the keynote for this morning. Paula Basta was appointed director of the Illinois Department on Aging in March of 2019, becoming the 13th director and the 7th woman to lead the agency. She has over 40 years of experience with older adults. A few months ago, Governor Pritzker announced that Director Basta will be retiring at the end of the year. We're sorry to see her go, but we're happy that she's able to join us this morning. And will be interviewed by educator, trainer, and consultant on aging, Terry Warman, who just happens to be Paula's spouse. Dr. Basta, take it away.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks, Lamar, and thank you for your powerful story. So grateful to have heard that, have you with us. Good morning, all. Good morning, everyone. Glad and grateful to be here. I don't know. I've got this interviewer. She's kind of tough, so I'm going to try and get through it. It's going to be hard. As
Good
Lamar
morning,
said,
Director.
good morning, Chair. As Lamar said, my name is Paula Basta. She, her pronouns. I am 67 years old and happy to be here. And I guess happy to be interviewed by the one and only Terry Warman. Take it away.
Good morning, Paula. Hello, everyone. Terry Warman, she, her pronouns. I am 68. Yes, so I thank you, Kim, tasking me to try to interview this wonderful woman. So, Director, good morning. So to our knowledge, you're the first out LGBTQ person to lead the Illinois Department on Aging and the only out LGBTQ plus state unit on aging director. So what's the significance of this representation in Illinois?
Yeah, thanks, T. So I believe I am definitely the only out lesbian. And I know Erin Tax is on here from SAGE. and maybe he has another perspective. There are other persons of the LGBT group that are other state units on aging, but of the 51, I am the out lesbian, so I'm honored. Actually, it's really wonderful. I think we are of a generation of the Stonewall generation, so it has laid for us the foundation of LGBTQ visibility. And I think that what I know for a fact is that the Pritzker administration and this governor is committed to making sure that he had highlighted in his cabinet the diverse sense of who is and makes up the rich, vast landscape of the state of Illinois, right? And he knows that LGBT plus folks are part of that landscape and takes that very seriously. He is a champion for us, and I know that for a fact. And also to that, the commitment to equity, to inclusion, to accessibility, to being seen, to being part of having a voice at the table is all very important. So I think that's sort of the highlights there for us. As Don had set the sort of the landscape also for us this morning, and talking about how great the state of Illinois has been in so many ways, being the first in all kinds of things. I'm grateful that this is also another first. So I take that very seriously, but also know that the job has been very, very large, and I know you know that. And so I hope that I have done a little bit of good while I've been here, my 4.5 years, but also in my career of 44 years in the field of aging, of which I am completely passionate about and have been since being a baby social worker when I was 22 years old and in the city of Chicago working for the Little Brothers of the Poor. So fast forward, right, 44 years, and now looking at LGBT elders, how we are facing certain obstacles that are still with us. And then also looking at just in general, as you grow older, what do you face? And then tack on that being LGBT, what do you face? And we know in some ways it's poverty. It can be lack of health, access to health care, certain discriminations that go on everywhere that we need to tackle and to address. And then, of course, social isolation. We can talk about social isolation just the whole day, right? And how we are at the Illinois Department on Aging are trying to address that. But in the LGBT community, I think we have to really also heighten and look at that. So hopefully, being LGBT and part of the community, I hope it's been important that we've seen my being in this role, and that my voice has been heard at the highest level of government for the state of Illinois, and that our unique needs, being LGBT, has been considered in state policy decisions because of this. Did I answer that?
Yeah,
Okay.
you got it. Yeah, and I really think that your long history, in aging services, but also being that lesbian who is older, it really is. I know that there is a uniqueness to you being able to look at that. So Illinois' current state plan on aging is the most inclusive to date. So what does this mean for LGBTQ older adults in Illinois?
Yeah, thanks, T. So we're very proud of our state plan. I mean, when I came on board in March of 2019, the current state plan, we are mandated as the state unit on aging, Illinois Department on Aging, must give to our federal funders, the Administration on Community Living, and those, and under the Older Americans Act, we get those federal dollars, and then the state gives those out to our 13 AAAs, area agencies on aging, which, by the way, I'm really grateful to see Carolyn Austin, one of our CEO of AgeLink out there in Springfield. She's here today with us. Such, again, a great symbol of how our AAAs are doing amazing work around LGBT aging throughout the state of Illinois. But I want to say that our current state plan, we did and worked hard on making it the most inclusive and the most greatest way in which the document matters. And when you put things in writing and you give it to the feds, they're going to hold your feet to the fire, make sure you're doing what you say you're going to do. So we thought that we would take this state plan. We did a whole series of hearings throughout the state. And of course, wouldn't you know it, we were in the midst of a pandemic, a global pandemic. So this was 2020. And it was challenging, but it was good. So I think that we had a lot more investment when we did the state plan. And I know that what we did, and we also put in writing and highlighting areas, the needs and the, as I mentioned before, some of the obstacles, but also the highlight of the importance of the LGBTQ plus older adults' voices being heard at the table in each and every of the 13 AAAs. So I think we wanted to make sure too that we specifically identified in our funding formula that LGBT was part of the targeted population of the greatest social need, which is really important because then the dollars flow that way too. And that no matter where you live in the state, no matter where you live, and as you know too, Tara, I have been all over the state of Illinois for these past 4.5 years, over 30 to 40,000 miles throughout the state, which I love, but everyone deserves access to the inclusive and welcoming services and programs for older adults, everyone. And so how do you get that done? You get that done by making sure that you see welcoming, either a flag, or making sure that you have staff, or maybe you have someone who's going to highlight a program around LGBT aging. For example, Age Options, Age Guide, and Age Link, they're doing programming around LGBT aging, specifically Thrive with Pride, memory cafes. These things are tangible, right? And that are happening at senior centers. And so we want to make sure that this was reflected in our state plan, and this was a great guide for us. So the next state plan, we're up now 3 years into running. The next state plan is due next year. So they'll be talking, I'm sure IdeaWay will be talking and getting input from around the state, all the stakeholders again, to make sure that we, I think, strengthen what we began, but also expand it, right? So
Yep.
I'm excited. That's an
Yep.
exciting time. Thanks.
Well, to build off of that, I mean, Illinois passed a state law to make permanent some initiatives that you voluntarily undertook, such as requiring LGBTQ awareness training
Yep.
for IdeaWay funded service providers. So as you prepare to retire at the end of the month, how do you hope a future IdeaWay director builds on this progress?
Well, I mean, I think it's a given, right? Again, the commitments from the governor's office, but also my staff, this not mine, okay, maybe. The staff that is here at the Illinois Department on Aging are rock star. They're terrific staff. And, all of what we're continuing to do with being in the inclusive ways in which we do our programming, that doesn't end. That will only expand. And I'm so excited for whoever is honored and privileged, like I have been honored and privileged to sit in this seat, whoever is next to sit in this seat. Because as you know, I mean, we have, since I become the director, I mean, we did and made sure that people have been getting SAGE trainings, that we are, as an Illinois Department on Aging, we are, I think, a platinum or gold sponsor. I never know which, maybe Aaron can tell me which of the highlighted sponsors we are. We have it on our website. That stuff's not going away. Training is not going to go away. Outreach is not going to go away. Education, it's not going to go away. We will only expand it. We will continue to be welcoming and affirming as a state unit on aging, and we will make sure that the aging network is strengthened because of this. And again, snapshot globally, or well, statewide, the LGBT aging, LGBT elders, like all the elder population, is growing. The trajectory is growing. So right now, I think we're at 4.3% of the state population. I think that base in Illinois, and then I think that we're about 25% is 50 and older. So, this is only going to grow, and it's a very exciting time to be in Illinois and to be LGBT.
Well, and I also think that Mr. Don Bell and the Commission on LGBT aging will not allow whoever is in charge next to not understand the needs.
No, agreed. We have such great advocates here and stakeholders here in the state of Illinois. And those are the folks too, that are just, are part of how it is that we will always make sure that we're inclusive. I mean, that's just a given. And we, look, grateful is, the word doesn't even do it. I am beyond grateful to our advocates. I like to call them our co-conspirators, but our colleagues. I hope
love
they're
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Hope they're okay with it.
Oh, I'm waiting for Don to come off of mute because I think he will love co-conspirator because, well, we all know he is. So this is a legislative breakfast as well,
Sure.
but and so
Sure.
what are one or two either emerging or overlooked issues in aging services that we really need to pay attention to over the next few years?
Yeah, one or two, that's tough, Terry. I have so many that we continually know that we need to put on our radar. The Illinois Department on Aging, we have a $1.6 billion budget. So we have a large budget. We're a small agency, only about 150 folks, but we are a large budget, and that's because of our community care program, which is as part of our mission, it is to keep older adults in their homes for as long as possible and in a safe, healthy, and well manner. So that means that all the programming we do is focused on that mission. And so when I look at what I think we need to, continually highlight, but also look to strengthen our home and community-based services, right? HCBS. And that's basically what throughout the country we had found through the pandemic, especially, that now we need to highlight on a national level how it is that we're going to strengthen those programs so that we do keep people in their homes. And that's a huge undertaking, as we all know. So I would like to make sure that we strengthen our CCP program. There's a lot of different ways. I won't get into the weeds on a lot of different things as to how we're doing that, but we continue to do that. Obviously, one of the biggest issues too is transportation. I think transportation, especially, I do know in the state of Illinois in around 2026 is going to face a large way in which they're going to either have to consolidate or work on how that's going to be handled here in the state of Illinois. But I do know that at the forefront, aging should be at the table, talking about transportation and how we need transportation to be inclusive, but also a lot better and to be able to have accessibility be a lot easier. So that's another thing. And then caregiving, caregiver issues. I think LGBT older adults, our caregivers are going to need caregiving. I think you're going to have to look at solo aging. I think, what does that mean? How does that look? You will, as we get older, and we may end up aging alone or already are alone. So what does that look like when you have no family or support services? We have chosen family, right? And so to that end, we have to make sure our laws reflect what chosen family means and that they're highlighted and that they're also respected and included. So I think we have to put on our radar caregiving, but also what chosen family means around caregiving, and caregiving issues need to be highlighted specifically to the LGBT older adults so that it's a seamless transition of what we do. Obviously, you have also older adults who are aging with HIV, first time ever, HIV/AIDS. So you need to include all of those other programs and services to be inclusive of those populations as well. And then ageism. Just in general, ageism is one of our biggest challenges in the country. So tack on homophobia, and then you got ageism, and then you've got a whole couple of double whammies, triple whammies of how we grow older and have discrimination affect us. Okay, well, I think that I'll stop there. There's more, but
I have one more question, but
okay.
And I think your point about chosen family, I think over the years that chosen family, we've actually expanded what it is for other older adults, not because many people who are not LGBTQ are actually being cared for by chosen families.
Absolutely.
This will be a short one, sort of, but what? So how can we get more younger people to pay attention to aging issues and enter the field? I mean, this is something that's vexing us all, but
of course. I mean, it was exciting, but also all of us who are advocates in the field of aging, and also people who care deeply about aging as a profession. I think that we need to continually be those those champions, those cheerleaders, those folks who talk to and go out in the communities to say, hey, come join us, come look at how you can be part of the Aging Network, because it's a great network to be part of. And we can say that. I know that for a fact. How do we do it? Well, we do it through intergenerational programming. Many of our AAAs do a great job at how our intergenerational programs are rolled out, either in senior centers or congregate dining sites or senior buildings, or where people are living, but also just in churches or wherever they start to spend time. I think that what we've been trying to have conversations with is the Illinois ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education, to talk about how we can bring gerontology into programming in high schools, and to see that this is a path, a career path that you can have along with education and teaching children, that this is a career path that you can do that. And I just basically want to make sure that they know that aging should be at the table, and that we have gerontology programs in high schools. Obviously, universities and colleges, we would make sure that we highlight older adult programs and how we talk about those at the college level, the university level, to make sure that, again, you see a career path that can happen here, because we are the fastest growing population in the country. Come work with us, please. We know you'll get a job, and it'll be a great job. So come on. I mean, you've got some people on this panel that are rock stars there. I see Katie Fasulo, I see Rita Larson, of course, Kim Hunt. I mean, all of you are just such great champions and advocates, and bring us out. Try to dust us off, bring us out. Let us talk to schools. Let us talk to kids. Let us explain why they should be as excited as we are about working in the field of aging. I did work, as you know, and taught at Loyola University for a couple of years, and great experience there. And I really think they need to make sure that we're highlighting more gerontology, but also older adult programming.
Director Basta.
One other thing, and I just want to talk about this quickly.
No,
is that the medical field, we got to talk about docs, nurses, we got to talk about healthcare, and make sure that healthcare has aging and gerontology and the field of aging on their radar.
Yeah, thank you.
Am I in trouble?
I tried, Kim. So Director Basta, Paula, we thank you. We have loved having you with us all these years.
That's it?
No, I know you're not going away. Although I think she is going to sleep through January.
Yeah, like a bear. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So
all right.
thank you. Enjoy the last few weeks of being director. Enjoy your retirement, because I know I will be as well. So thank
good.
you.
Well, and I just
so
want to
very
shout
much.
out. I just want to shout out the rest of this month. I will be traveling throughout the state. I'll be going to Central Illinois, Southern Illinois, highlighting all the good programming that's going on down there. And I just can't say enough about how wonderfully strong the Aging Network is in the state of Illinois. And I am grateful beyond words. T, thank you. You were pretty easy on me. Thanks.
Excellent.
I'm going to pop on for just a second. Paula and Terry, thank you so much for that amazing conversation. I didn't get my act together fast enough, but Paula, you will have just a token of appreciation coming from Pride Action Tank and the Out Aging Committee, a little award, not this one, that will just, highlight for us and for you how much we appreciate your work over the years for older adults, and particularly for LGBTQ older adults. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Thank you both. And Mike, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you, Director Basta and Terry, for that wonderful discussion. And thank you, Director, for your leadership. It's been a pleasure to work with you, to advocate with you and to you, and yes, to co-conspire with you and so many other great folks who are part of this program today. So thank you. My name is Mike Ziri. My pronouns are he, him. I am the Director of Public Policy at Equality Illinois. We're the state's LGBTQ+ civil rights organization. I'm also a member of the Out Aging Committee. And it is my pleasure now to introduce some colleagues who are going to speak with you about public policy initiatives. I'm going to introduce them in the order of their introductions. They'll speak in the order of their introductions. And I also just want to say I have worked with all three of these individuals extensively on really cool initiatives over the years. They are fierce, they are amazing, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say. And I will say, you know, we may have a few minutes at the end of this segment for questions. So please put your questions about policy issues in the chat, and we will do our best to try to ask those and respond to those. But first, I want to introduce Aaron Tax. Aaron is the Managing Director of Government Affairs and Policy Advocacy for SAGE, where he advocates for LGBTQ+ inclusive federal aging policies that account for the unique needs of LGBTQ+ older adults. Second, we'll hear from Timothy S. Jackson, the Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy at AIDS Foundation Chicago. As a Black gay man living with HIV for more than 14 years, Timothy's career is rooted in advocating on behalf of people living with HIV, amplifying the voices of those most impacted, and addressing the impact HIV has on the communities where his identities intersect. And last, but certainly not least, Mary E. Anderson, the Chicago Director for AARP Illinois. As the Director of Advocacy and Outreach for AARP Illinois, Mary directs the organization's strategy for the Northern Illinois region and is responsible for overseeing AARP Illinois advocacy and initiatives, particularly in the Chicagoland area. These are all amazing. I can't wait to hear what they have to say. Aaron, I'm going to let you kick it off.
All right. Thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. I'm Aaron Tax. As Mike said, I use him pronouns, and I head up government affairs, as Mike said, for SAGE. Just a brief background on SAGE, who we are, what we do. We were founded in New York City in 1978, and we are the world's largest and oldest organization dedicated to improving the lives of LGBT older people and older people living with HIV. We run about 5 senior centers, LGBT targeted senior centers in New York City, 2 apartment buildings. We run the federally funded National Resource Center on LGBT aging. We do direct services, and we have a whole training arm that Paula referenced called Sage Care, where we credential AAA, state units, aging providers, all sorts of organizations in both the aging and LGBT space. So first, a huge thank you to AIDS Foundation Chicago, Equality Illinois, AARP Illinois, Paula Basta, of course, and all of our amazing partners on the ground in Illinois. A note on Paula, we're really going to miss her. And if only we could clone her and have 50 Paulas in every state across the country, we'd be really in really good shape. So maybe, Paula, we can talk about that during your retirement, some sort of cloning program. I will note, thanks to my colleague Nick, that Illinois Department of Aging was Sage Care credentialed in 2020. Nick also notes that we still can reach for platinum credentialing in 2024. So Paula, you have 1 more month to get that done, or we're going to work with your, the next person there and make that happen. I'll also note for the record, there are a record 86 credentialed agencies all across the state of Illinois. So congratulations on that. And finally, on the congratulations and all that stuff, you're all doing such amazing work in Illinois. I got to say, from the national perspective, it's so impressive, and in so many ways, you're a model for the rest of the nation. So we really do appreciate that. My job here today, in the next 4 minutes that I have, is to talk a little bit about what's going on at the federal level that in many ways complements and builds on the work that you're doing in Illinois. Much of our work concerns the Older Americans Act, which most of you probably know is the primary vehicle for the organization and delivery of social and nutrition programs for older people in our country. It funds programs like Meals on Wheels, senior centers, chore assistance, transportation assistance, so on and so forth. About 10 years ago, the Obama administration gave states the discretion to consider populations like LGBT folks and those living with HIV as populations of greatest social need. Your advocates on the ground in Illinois took that and ran with it, and you're one of the first states all across the country to designate these populations as target populations of greatest social need in Illinois. And that simply means that these are populations that we hope will no longer fall through the cracks, and they will get the services and supports they need to remain independent. In addition to that, in 2020, when the law was reauthorized, we got some language in there that requires 3 things from every single state unit on aging in the country and every area agency on the aging in the country. First of all, outreach to LGBT older folks, collecting data on their needs, and collecting data on whether they're meeting their needs. And now we're working with states all across the country, from red states to blue states, to make progress on that front and to hold them all accountable for doing that work. In addition, on the Older Americans Act front, for the first time since 1988, the Administration for Community Living is updating the regulations concerning the Older Americans Act. We and folks in Illinois and all across the country requested a whole number of things with respect to LGBT folks and those living with HIV, including a designation of greatest social need by ACL in those regs. We expect those to come out somewhat soon. Everyone just waiting with bated breath here in DC. So maybe this year, or maybe this December, if not, most likely January. In addition to that, the Older Americans Act is going through a reauthorization process again, an update in 2024. So once again, our goals are an explicit national designation of LGBT older folks and those living with HIV as populations of greatest social need, much like Illinois, to have a training requirement so that anyone getting federal money through the Administration for Community Living will have to be culturally competent in the needs of LGBT folks and those living with HIV, plus a number of other priorities. So we'll keep you in tune on that front, and we hope you'll be able to raise the voice of people all across Illinois in support of those changes to the Older Americans Act. In the minute and 10 seconds I have left, I'll touch on one or two other things. At the federal level, one of our priorities concerns a long-term care bill of rights. And this is a law that was first passed in San Francisco back in the day, then statewide in California, and now in a number of other states across the country, most recently in New York. And what it does is lay out in a very granular way all the rights that people have in long-term care settings. So while they may very well be covered in states like Illinois, it's really helpful to really say, well, what does non-discrimination mean? We have to honor people's pronouns. Room placement must be based on gender identity, so on and so forth. So we're currently working with the Biden administration to advance an administrative long-term care bill of rights. This is something the president promised to us in his Pride executive order a year and a half ago. So we're continuing to push the administration to hold him accountable for that promise and to get that across the finish line before the end of this first term of the administration. In addition to that, we're working with colleagues in Congress or allies in Congress to pass, or to introduce rather, a federal legislative long-term care bill of rights, which would put those same protections in place at the federal level. So with 2 seconds to spare, that is my bit, and I pass it back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Aaron. And I pass it now to Timothy S. Jackson.
Thank you so much, Mike, and good morning to everyone. As Mike mentioned earlier, my name is Timothy Jackson, and I'm the Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy at AIDS Foundation Chicago, an organization committed to ending the syndemics of HIV and homelessness, especially among the Black, Latinx, and LGBTQ communities most impacted. It is my absolute pleasure to spend some time with you this morning. Today, 53% of people living with HIV in the United States are age 50 and older. And by 2030, more than 70% will be over the age of 50. Here in Illinois, 48% of Illinoisans living with HIV are age 50 and older, and represent 16% of new diagnoses as of 2022. And we understand that many older people people living with HIV have conditions such as heart disease or cancer that can complicate their HIV treatment. But what we do know is that many older people aren't routinely offered HIV testing. And the current guideline from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is that medical providers should offer HIV testing on a routine basis to people aged 13 to 64. According to the National Institutes for Health, older adults are less likely to get tested for HIV for a variety of reasons, including older adults are often considered at low risk of getting HIV, which by the numbers I just gave you, 16% of them here in Illinois, that's not a low risk. For this reason, healthcare providers may not always think to test older people for HIV. Some older adults may be embarrassed or afraid to be tested for HIV. And then we also know that in older adults, signs of HIV may be mistaken for symptoms of aging or of age-related conditions. And because of these reasons and many others, HIV is more likely to be diagnosed at an advanced stage in many older adults, which of course complicates an entire list of matters. And so the HIV and Aging Policy Action Coalition, led by my colleagues at SAGE, United States People Living with HIV Caucus, and others, are really leading the charge on the federal level to remove the upper limit on routine HIV testing guidelines. Want to get rid with it, of course, because of course, once you reach the age past 64, you're no longer having sex. There's no need to we know that's ridiculous. And so we want to remove that upper limit. But as I mentioned, that's on the federal level. Here on the state level, we understand that increasing HIV testing and access to treatment is a very, a major key component of the Getting to Zero Illinois plan to end the HIV epidemic by 2030. And because of this, AFC, AIDS Foundation Chicago, will be advancing what I'm calling the Connection to HIV Testing and Linkage to Care Act, shortened to the HIV TLC Act, during the 2024 spring legislative session. And some of those reforms included in that legislation include mandating that insurers and the state Medicaid agency to provide coverage for home testing kits for sexually transmitted infections, including HIV, without cost sharing. Create rapid start for HIV treatment pilot sites that would initiate antiretroviral therapy within 7 days of initial diagnosis or within 7 days of referral to HIV medical care. The current practice in Illinois is initiating ARV therapy for those newly diagnosed within 30 days. And so obviously there is a huge gap in that. And this rapid start for HIV treatment is a major component of the GTZ plan to end HIV. And then finally, working with our friends at the Illinois Department of Corrections and the Illinois Department of Public Health, ensure that all of our county jails are providing HIV/AIDS education to not only prisoners, but visitors, as well as linking them to HIV testing as mandated by the Illinois County Jail Act. And so it's something that is already on the books. And so we're working to make sure that they're enforcing that education is being done, not only again to prisoners, but to anyone that visits, as well as providing them linkage to testing. Because again, we understand that everyone has an HIV status, whether it's positive or negative. We want to ensure that everyone knows that status so we can either provide them prevention, whether that's through PrEP or PEP, or if they are living with HIV, provide them treatment within obviously, hopefully, 7 days, which is the rapid start model. So we are still working to pull this legislation language together. So please stay tuned for more. We will definitely, I'm sure those of y'all that are familiar with kind of the process, and you're kind of feverishly working to get all this done before the beginning part of the session, which begins mid-January. But you will definitely be hearing more. So again, thank you so much for having me, and I will toss it back over to Mike.
Thanks so much, Tim. And I will toss it now to Mary.
Hey, everybody. Mary Anderson, she, her, hers. I'm 53 years old. I am the Chicago Director of AARP Illinois, and as well as the Director of Advocacy and Outreach for Northern Illinois for AARP Illinois. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be on this panel with these amazing partners. Equality Illinois, Pride Action Tank, SAGE, and also Center on Halstead were our partners as we did a LGBTQ disparities initiative last year, which resulted in the fabulous LGBTQ plus Aging Commission. Also want to thank the leadership of Director Paula Bosta. It would not be possible without her leadership. She's been a fantastic leader with us, not only through this LGBTQ initiative, but also our racial equity initiative we did or we're still doing at AARP. And also a big, huge thank you to Terry Warman. None of the work that AARP Illinois has done on LGBTQ would be possible if it wasn't for Terry setting the foundation for fantastic work she did for 25 years with AARP. So Terry, you're a rock star. So what I want to talk about today is what's happening at the state level, and in particularly AARP, we're focusing on an initiative on caregiving. It's called Pathways Towards Care Initiative. We are laser focused on caregiving for these next few years because 47% of Illinoisans are caregivers. And this last year, 1.3 billion hours, that's billion with a B, hours of unpaid caregiving was provided by these family caregivers. So we want to work to get more support for them, and in particular for LGBTQ caregivers and older adults. So our disparities report that we did last year, we found that 3 out of 4 older LGBTQ adults are concerned that they will be aging alone and they will not have the supports that they need. And already almost a quarter of LGBTQ older adults are providing care to an LGBTQ friend over the age of 50, which is significantly higher than our non-LGBTQ counterparts. So let's get some support for them. So we are providing, starting an initiative called Pathways Towards Care, which has a research component, it has a community outreach and education component, and has a legislative component. And I want to talk to you about our legislative component today. So let me see if I can share this one slide. So this one slide shows what are the different bills that we're doing. We have 6 bills that we're doing: a family caregiver income tax credit, a one-stop website for Illinois caregivers. So when you're trying to make those caregiving decisions, you have a place to go to know what questions to ask and where you can get the information. An expansion of telehealth and Medicaid and Medicare. A home care rate increase for the community care program, a Senior Equity of Care Act, as well as increased funding for long-term care. But what I want to talk to you about today is this one bill, the Family Caregiver Income Tax Credit. All of these bills will be helping LGBTQ caregivers and older adults, but this one in particular, we're really, really excited about. This is a tax credit that would provide a $750 tax credit to family caregivers who are providing care for older adults 50 years and older. What is important about this bill is that this bill has a very broad definition of family, a definition of family that we have received from SAGE, that we've been tested in other states and other jurisdictions, that includes chosen family. It includes non-traditional families. So those LGBTQ older adults who are providing care to their LGBTQ older adults chosen family would qualify for this tax credit. We'll be introducing this bill in January. We introduced it last year. We've been doing some negotiations behind the scenes in order to get some more support for it. So we think we can get it across the line this year. And especially with the support of Equality Illinois, Pride Action Tank, and SAGE, I know we're going to be able to get it done. So I'll stop now and hand it back to Mike.
Great, thank you, Mary. And we're bumping up against time for this segment, but I do want to acknowledge that there were 2 questions in the chat, and I know folks are going to respond to those in the chat. So, please look at those answers in a moment here. And now first of all, thank you, Aaron, Tim, Mary, for your leadership, your advocacy, your impactful work. I love working with each and every one of you. We really rock the dome at the Capitol together. And now I want to turn it over to Britta Larson.
Thanks, Mike. And thank you to our public policy panelists for such a great presentation. I'm Britta Larson. My pronouns are she, her. I'm Director of Senior Services at Center on Halsted, which is the Midwest's most comprehensive community center for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community. I'm also a founding member of the Out Aging Committee. I am here today to introduce the speakers for the LGBTQ Programming in Action panel. They will speak in the order in which they're introduced. First, we have Nina Orlowski, she, her pronouns, LCSW. Nina joined Age Options in April 2023 as the Aging with Pride program specialist. She brings her passion for serving LGBTQ and older adult populations to this role, where she develops monthly Thrive with Pride programming, coordinates and supports local cafe partners, and advocates for other internal and external LGBTQ initiatives. Next, we have Carolyn Austin, Chief Executive Officer for AgeLink Area Agency on Aging for Lincoln Land, located in Springfield, Illinois. She is passionate about providing programs and services to both racial and ethnic minorities and the LGBTQ community, and has implemented new programs to better serve those communities in her program and service area. Carolyn is one of the newest members of the Out Aging Committee. And then finally, we have Dr. Katie Fasulo, a board-certified gerontological nurse focused on the health and wellness of older adults. She serves as the Corporate Director of Population Health and Health Equity at Chicagoland Methodist Senior Services and is a member of the Out Aging Committee. Katie has been recognized for exploring best practices in the care of LGBTQ older adults in long-term care settings through her publication titled LGBTQ Older Adults in Long-Term Care Settings, an integrated review to inform best practices. Okay, Nina, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I did have a couple of slides. Are we tossing those up or should I put them up, Kim?
You should be able to, Nina. Same for you, Katie.
Very good. Hold on just a second, folks.
And while Nina's doing that, I'll just mention if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A and the panelists will answer if they have time. And if not, they'll try and type an answer before the end of the program. Thank you.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to share the stage with all of these amazing colleagues in the field. And thank you to all of you for being here to learn about what we have to say. My name is Nina Orlowski. I use she, her pronouns. And as Britta said, I'm the Aging with Pride program specialist at Age Options. So if anybody hasn't heard of Age Options before, we are the area agency on aging for suburban Cook County. What that means is that we advocate, plan, coordinate, and fund services for older adults and those who care for them, along with a network of community-based senior service organizations. We do a whole host of things, connecting residents to vital services, such as information and assistance, community dining programs, home-delivered meals, housekeeping, employment, benefits access, and support for caregivers, so a whole host of things. I believe we are in the process of renewing our SAGE Platinum certification. So I'm just making a note of that. But what I'm here to tell you about today is our program that works specifically with LGBT older adults. That's called Thrive with Pride. So Thrive with Pride is an inclusive online space for LGBT older adults and those who care for them in the suburban Cook County area. And we work with a host of partner sites to build a more inclusive aging network for suburban Chicagoland. So the goals of our program, first goal is to alleviate social isolation among this population and increase their access to information and resources, and then subsequently increase their engagement in those aging services and ultimately improve their mental and physical health. So what does that look like in practice? Kind of a two-pronged approach. So Age Options hosts a monthly online event that gives our participants access to expert presentations on a variety of topics of interest that we receive feedback from them on, followed by discussion. Then we provide our funded partners with event reportings and discussion guides so that they can host their own follow-up events. So that's where the cafe comes in. We have cafe partners spread out throughout suburban Cook County that offer a safe and welcoming space for our older adults and caregivers to congregate and learn a little bit more about more localized resources in their area. And topics are wide ranging. I won't belabor the list, but I'll share a list to our archive at the end so you know what kind of topics we've been discussing and what's coming up next. But as I mentioned, we do keep an archive of those presentations on our website, along with additional resources at the local, state, and national level for both LGBT older adults and for service providers serving that population. So currently we have 6 formally funded partners, as I said, trying to leverage some non-traditional service partners as well. So we work with 2 churches, 2 LGBT organizations, and 2 aging service providers. And then you all, we have a network of widespread community allies who help publicize and sometimes attend our events. And to name those partners, we've got Aging Care Connections in LaGrange, Holy Covenant Metropolitan in Brookfield, Howard Brown Health working in the South Suburbs, Levy Senior Center in Evanston, Pillar of Love Fellowship in Summit, and West Suburban Senior Services in Bellwood, Illinois. And the partners offer a mix of virtual and in-person programming. This program came about in the early pandemic times, so we're working to see what's next in terms of getting offline in person as much as possible, but right now we are predominantly still online. So those monthly events I mentioned typically take place on the fourth Tuesday of each month at 11 a.m. on Zoom. Some upcoming topics we're excited about. In January, we are holding a focus group for LGBT older adults, specifically living in suburban Cook County. Something that you do not have to have attended a previous event. We want to engage new folks to learn about what kind of programming is meaningful to them and what are meaningful forms of engagement so that we can reach new people and grow the program. And then in February, we'll have Jackie Boyd from the Care Plan coming in to talk about combating loneliness and increasing intimacy. So we're excited about that. I also saw Mike Zeri's on the call. He was just with us in November talking about legislative updates. So I appreciate all the support from you partners in helping us bring programming to our folks. There's the link to the archive I mentioned, so you can see all of our past presentations. And then on our website, which you'll see here, you can sign up for the focus or help folks sign up for the focus group. That is something we're asking seniors specifically, the aging service providers, maybe sit this one out just so we can get those voices raised, those we need to hear from. I've got my emails here as well, so if you have any questions, feel free to send those my way, but I'll see if there's any in the chat. Thanks so much for having me, everybody. For the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Nina. Carolyn.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And thank you to Director Basta for her kind words earlier and her support of our programming. I am with the Area Agency on Aging for Lincoln Land. My name is Carolyn Austin. I'm the CEO. My pronouns are she, her, hers. In March of 2022, during the pandemic, we started a LGBTQ plus older adult program. It's a congregate meal program that we hold at our office every Thursday. It's called Pride Link, and we've been very happy with the number of attendees that we have. We offer a meal every week, and also speakers on special topics of interest, and various activities that we do with the group. And it's been very well attended and very well received, and so we're very happy with how that's gone. One thing that I do want to talk about is something new, and I'm sorry I didn't prepare slides, but we just were awarded a grant through the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority via a special appropriation from Senator Doris Turner's office to create an LGBTQ plus older adult violence prevention program that we will disseminate statewide. We're going to call it OutSafe, and we have pulled together a group of people throughout the state, including Pride Action Tank and Golden Rainbows Illinois South, and a couple of other area agencies on aging, including Age Options, and members of the LGBTQ Commission on Aging, as well as the Illinois Public Health Association. And the plan is to create both a public awareness campaign about violence against LGBTQ older adults, and also a training curriculum that we will take to police departments, healthcare workers, community-based organizations throughout the state on providing culturally competent, care and referrals for LGBT older adults who have experienced some sort of violence, and also to try to raise awareness to prevent that violence from happening in the first place. So we're really excited to get started on that. That will be really hitting the ground after the first of the year, and we'll be doing trainings statewide starting in the spring. So we're very excited about that. Other than that, I can just say we spend a lot of our time really researching and marketing to the LGBT community, and making sure that we're attending events, partnering with other organizations to try to reduce social isolation and just provide a community for our older adults. So that's what we do with our time. And also have been very specific about recruiting LGBT older adults to our board and advisory council to make sure that we're hearing from the community. Next Thursday at our Pride Link program, we will be having a listening session to get feedback and use that information in creating our area plan for FY24. And I just wanted to say to Director Basta, if you're going to be in Springfield over the next few weeks, you're welcome to attend another Pride Link luncheon and see how things have changed and grown. So thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Carolyn. Your perspective in terms of programming outside of the Chicagoland area is particularly important on the call today, since we're a statewide initiative. Okay, Katie, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And thanks for your introduction, Britta. So I'm Katie Fasulo. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from CMSS, so I'm going to pull up a couple slides and share these with everybody. Okay, there we go. So yeah, as Britta mentioned, I am the Corporate Director of Population Health and Health Equity at Chicago Methodist Senior Services, or CMSS. And I want to talk today about our LGBT inclusivity. I'll talk about specific programs, but also us sort of as a whole. So if you are not familiar with us as an organization, CMSS has been around for over 125 years. This is our 125th year of existence. And so in that time, we have expanded our services to encompass a lot of things. So this slide just sort of shows a snapshot of what some of the things that we're doing in the community, both housing and also community services. So, so we do things like residential memory care, affordable senior housing. We have a friendly visitor program, a senior center that I'll talk about later, home care, and then an LGBT specific program that Nina alluded to, West Suburban, and I'll talk about a little bit later in this presentation. So just systematically, CMSS has done a few things, one of which we have already talked about in this forum already, which is Sage Care. And since 2020, we have been Sage Care Platinum credentialed. So for 4 consecutive years, we've received the highest level that you can receive in Sage Care training in LGBTQ cultural competency. Likewise, we have also participated this year in the Long-Term Care Equality Index. And if you're not familiar with what that is, the LEI is a partnership between SAGE and the Human Rights Campaign, and it is an survey for organizations that have long-term care to do sort of a self-assessment to see how that community is doing as far as LGBT inclusivity. And then based on the results, you can get certain levels of certain badges. And so all 4 of our communities that were eligible to participate did. Our 2 independent affordable housing buildings and our assisted living and our skilled nursing communities all participated, and all 4 of them received high performer status. And we're the only ones in all of Chicago to receive high performer. So so we're really proud of that, to be the only 4 in all Chicago. The other thing is displays of affirmation. So Paula, Director Basta mentioned earlier of organizations kind of putting flags out and things like that. So we've really been intentional about as an organization of doing those things. We launched a Pride logo a few years ago that you can see on the left. Top right corner of the slide, you can see what our logo looks like, and we sort of turned that into a Pride logo that we launched a couple years ago for Pride. And then we made that into stickers and buttons that all of our staff and residents and clients and volunteers and everybody wear proudly. We also offered this past year, we launched pronoun stickers. So all of our staff now have the option to display their pronouns on their badges if they choose to. And these are the actual stickers that we offer, so you can see that there's a variety of options. And then if there are pronouns that someone uses that are not listed, there are also blank ones so you can sort of fill in as well. So on to some of our LGBT specific programs. The GOLD program is an evidence-based program that was started at CMSS, stands for GLBT+ older adults leading initiatives to drive change. And what the GOLD program consists of is an LGBT older adult advisory council and storytelling. So Lamar did such a fantastic job telling a story earlier on in this program. And we've really taken that model and tried to bring it internally. What we know is that especially in long-term care, many LGBT older adults don't feel comfortable to be themselves. So we knew that we wanted to provide space that people can be their authentic selves. So how did we want to do that? This program was built for that reason, because we wanted to bring LGBT older adult voices to the forefront. So we embedded LGBT older adults into our organizational structure by creating that advisory council. And we go to that council for things like changing our policies and our forms and bringing the perspective of that person who may be coming into our communities to say, you know, I'm looking at your form and it doesn't ask me about my pronouns. That I would recommend that you change that. And then it's up to us as an organization to do those things. And we really made some good strides with all of their feedback. And then likewise, the older adult storytelling, we have LGBT older adults that are part of our GOLD program storytelling group. And we have workshops to sort of help those older adults curate stories similar to Lamar's, just sort of telling their truth as an LGBT older adult. And the intention there is to share it both internally with our staff, our leadership, our board members, to improve knowledge and empathy. And then also externally. So actually, we shared some of our stories with Thrive with Pride with Nina a couple months ago in October for LGBT History Month. And then I also want to highlight West Suburban, that is a Thrive with Pride partner with Age Options. And West Suburban is our senior center located in Bellwood, Illinois. So they are in Cook County in the western suburbs. And they have a specific LGBT program. So you can see that picture on the bottom to the left. It's you know, the senior center participants and also the LGBT participants in the program too. And so every week the LGBT program has a weekly lunch and discussion group. They also have a crafting group. They do a movie night. It is a really, really close-knit, tight group that gets together at least every week. And they stuck together through the pandemic. They moved virtually. Now we're back in person, and really a resilient, fantastic group of folks. And again, to highlight some of the work that we're also doing outside of the city. And so again, this was just kind of an overview and a snapshot of some of the things that we're doing at CMSS. I could probably talk about this forever. So please feel free to email me if you want to talk offline, or if you have any questions, to drop in the chat. And thank you again for having me here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie. We have a couple of minutes. We're running a little ahead of schedule. So if anyone in the audience out there has a question for our panelists, feel free to pop it in and we can ask them. And in the interim, with a couple of minutes, I'll ask just the panelists, how do you reach the LGBT older adults you're trying to engage in programming and services? How do you kind of invite them in? How do they know what you're offering? And has it been difficult to kind of make that connection and build these things up, because they're new and you're building it up kind of from the ground? So anyone who wants to answer that.
I can hop in. That's something, you know, it's an ever-present thing we're working on, is how to reach folks. What do our participants see as meaningful forms of engagement, where they like to be reached, what forums, platforms. So right now we do a lot of that through our partners and our allies. They help us get the word out there about our programs, about their own more localized offerings. You know, we do email blasts, so we have a listserv. If anybody's interested, they can sign up for that on our website. And we're starting to explore, as I'm coming into almost my first full year here, starting to explore new avenues for doing so, through constant contact, through finding other outreach opportunities where our folks are gathered, outreaching to more non-traditional partners, outreach to churches that are affirming and open. So no stone left unturned, but always open to hearing feedback from our group in terms of what's meaningful to them. How do they prefer to be reached?
Great.
So I can comment on this too. We have done some actual advertising, both in papers and on television. But most of our participants have actually come from connections we've made at Pride Fest here in Springfield, and also through partnering with organizations, local organizations like the Coalition of Rainbow Alliances. I served on their board for a year, made a lot of great friends and contacts, and have participated in events that they've put on too. And we also we sponsor their gala every year. So that has helped under the name of our group, not our agency, so under Pride Link. And then also have worked with the Phoenix Center locally, who is an LGBT outreach organization. So really, partnerships have played a huge role for us in getting the word out. And Director Basta has been wonderful to talk about us all the time when she's out and about. So that's been very helpful as well.
I just want to add, sorry, Britta, I just want to add that all of those things. And then also I think that a lot of stuff too is word of mouth and just kind of a grassroots. You know, one LGBT older adult might attend one of our programs and loved it and told their friends who told their friends. And so I think a lot of times in this work, the people that maybe need it most or don't know where to look. And so sometimes it's just kind of, yeah, a grassroots kind of word of mouth.
Great, fantastic. Lots for us to think about, and congratulations on the great work that you all are doing. And I'm going to turn it back to Kim.
Thank you, Britta, and thank you to the speakers on this last panel. It's so important to demonstrate how programs can be put together for LGBTQ older adults, and to really normalize this identity, because we know that there are LGBTQ older adults in aging services programs. And as the policy panelist mentioned, we'll be working on legislation during the spring session of the Illinois General Assembly. And we cannot get legislation passed without you. So I'm going to have two asks for folks today, one related to the legislation, one not. The first is we want to make sure that you are kept up to date on all of our advocacy efforts at AFC and our partner organizations. So I just put in the chat the link to our mobile action center, and that's where you can be kept up to date and also learn about AFC's Advocacy Day, which will be April 10th next year. So put that in your calendar, because we would love for you all to participate in that. And the second thing that I would like for you to do, and you know, we always have to do this because we want to do better, y'all, is to complete our event survey. And I'm going to put that in the chat next. It just takes about 5 minutes for that for you to complete that. And that really helps us do better as we put these programs together. And this is the 4th year for this. We did this as a pivot from the Out-Aging Committee during the lockdown period where we all had to pivot. And now this has just become a staple program for our committee. And we want to thank you all for being here bright and early in the morning. And please join me in giving a round of applause to all of the speakers today. I want to thank each of them and you as well for sharing your time, experiences, and expertise. I also want to thank our communications team. Tyline is in the background making all the magic happen because I can't do this by myself. I also want to thank our Out-Aging Committee, which you've heard a lot about. It's a committee that got started in 2016 when we were doing planning a summit for the following year. And it includes scholars, LGBTQ older adults, service providers, all kinds of wonderful people. And I want to take a minute just to give them their flowers right now because they work throughout the year on programming. Arnold April, Mary Anderson, Carolyn Austin, Donald Bell, Jackie Boyd, Katie Fasulo, Phyllis Johnson, Antonio King, Britta Lawson, Walter Gomez, Billy Rogers, Becky Salazar, Michael Stone, Nick West. Oh my God. Goodness. Nick Westrate, Terry Warman, and Mike Zeri. Sorry about that. Sip of tea. These are all folks who work on aging issues throughout the year. And as we know, it's been one heck of a year where we've had to go back to the drawing board on our freedoms and rights that we thought we'd secured. Plus, the world is just on fire right now. So I hope each of you has the opportunity to recharge this holiday season so that we can continue to move humanity forward. And we wish you a healthy, peaceful, joyous holiday season and look forward to working with you in 2024. Please complete the survey, y'all. We'll send a thank you email that will include folks wanted contact information for the panelists. So I'll make sure that that's in the survey along with other information. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we will see you next year.